Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. We've got a Sylvan Scrying off of this beautiful masterpiece Lotus Petal. Jason's Turbo Depths pretty well blinged out here. Promo Sylvan Scrying, grabbing a Dark Depths, and Turbo Depths very, very fast. Heather, we'll see if she's actually on... No, she's actually going to be on Death and Taxes, so it's actually a much better matchup for her when she's running Death and Taxes compared to Goblins. Goblins does have some answers, but Death and Taxes has Swords to Plowshares, Palace Jailer, Flicker Wisp. I mean, it's just like every card in the deck seems to handle the Merit Lage. Caracas is probably the most difficult to contend with. We've got a Thespian Stage being tapped down, sparing a 2020. Would have actually been able to make the 2020 during the end step. Thanks to Urborg. Serves as acceleration in the deck, giving that Dark Depth the ability to tap for mana. And now during the upkeep, tapping again. Will Jason just make the 2020? No. All right. Jason's slowing it down with Turbo Depths. Doesn't want to walk headlong into a Swords to Plowshares. Or, I mean, even a Caracas. If Heather has one, she could play one on her turn. There's a lot of ways that making a 2020 there could go sideways. Casting Flicker Wisp. I mean, it walks headlong into literally anything that Heather could have. Oh, there you go. She has a Caracas. So that Merit Lage would have easily been thwarted. And now during the upkeep, Rashad and Port again tapping. Now, there could have been an interesting play to use the Thespian Stage to copy Rashad and Port. That can create some interesting situations where you can use your Thespian Stage to tap down that Caracas. If the mana is not going to get used anyways, it may end up being worthwhile. Flicker Wisp. Coming down. And then a Port during the upkeep. Actually making the Merit Lage, despite the Caracas duress coming out, taking out a Umezawa's Jite. I'm very curious how this is actually going to play out in Jason's favor. He's got a crop rotation here. So I guess we got the Caracas tapping to bounce the Merit Lage. And it's going to be a crop rotation. I mean, Flicker Wisp is a huge pain here because it's going to be able to block too. So another Thespian Stage being grabbed feels a little bit like just going in circles here. I think Pithing Needle is going to need to be part of the solution. This opposing Caracas is just absolutely brutal. Never mind the fact that the Flicker Wisp can happily take one for the team. If it does get to that point. Even if Jason, for example, uses Thespian Stage to copy a Rashad and Port and then manages to tap down a Caracas somehow during the end step. Still can't get past the Flicker Wisp easily. He's going to need something like a Sajiri Step or something. Phyrexian Revoker coming down. This is a matchup where its clause is particularly noticeable. The fact that Revoker can't name lands isn't always a big deal. But in this matchup, everything that you really want to be naming for the most part, is in fact a land. You can hit Vampire Hexmage, but the Elvish Reclaimer, we'll see if he actually has it in this build. I actually don't love it in Turbo Depths. I don't know what to make of the card. When you're trying to play a combo deck that's that fast, I mean, Elvish Reclaimer is actually pretty slow. It does give you the ability to answer a lot of things, and I do like the card a lot. I'm not totally convinced, or just not persuaded at all that it's a great fit for Turbo Depths, given how slow the card is compared to the rest of the deck. I mean, gives you kind of a plan B. I think it's definitely way better in slow depths is my kind of general takeaway. Builds that are running like Dark Confidant, Elvish Reclaimer, Vampire Hexmage. Before you know it, you actually have like a plan C of attacking with all of those creatures. It's actually doable. So Heather picking that game up just so far ahead there. Didn't really have a massive board presence. She had a couple of Flicker Wisp. It was going to be over in like 3 turns, but Jason not interested in running out that much more time. Clock management, not realistic as far as being an issue in this matchup. There are times, depending on the type of deck that you're playing, where you will scoop a game early or just let the game play out over its natural progression just to eat up an appropriate amount of time. Of course, you're never going to be slow playing or stalling. Both of those are against the rules and, in poor form. But there's nothing wrong with just allowing a game to take off those few extra minutes as your opponent, kills you with their Flicker Wisps. If you're potentially going to end up in a situation where game 3, you only have, say, 5 minutes left, and it's very difficult for Death and Taxes to actually close out a game in 5 minutes, whereas Turbo Depths, they can absolutely get there. So that's one of those things that you really have to make sure that you're completely understanding the rules and the spirit of the rules and the clear line. I mean, there's a crystal clear line in between stalling and clock management. And that's something that I've noticed a lot of... I actually don't know what the right term is. So people derogatorily call them tryhards, but people who are trying to get better at the game but aren't actually like a pro level, but are really just trying to improve. I've definitely seen them cross the line when it comes to clock management. I remember actually stopping playing in large tournaments for a while just because of some really negative experience that I had where my opponent had literally 2 mountains in hand and was tanking every turn and tried to justify it as that they were trying to bluff. And it's like, that's literally exactly what's against the rules. Like he had absolutely no play, and every single turn he was taking like a minute or 2 to really think about his options. And that was enough for me. I actually just went back to playing in the 30-40 person events instead of going to the huge events where you're traveling in between states. Having a draw in a round where I absolutely would have had no problem winning if my opponent didn't do that. That was enough for me for a little while. I think culturally the game has changed a lot. I think you're much less likely to see that now than you were, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So far, as far as this matchup goes, we've just got an Aether Vial and some jockeying for position. Sylvan Safekeeper, now we've got something to talk about. There's a Swords to Plowshares in Heather's hand. That can do some real work here. If it wasn't for the Sylvan Safekeeper, as it stands, it's basically going to be a 1-mana Stone Rain of sorts. Not even Stone Rain, just getting rid of the worst land. And Jason already has all of the mana that he needs for his combo. Heather considering whether or not now's the time to just fire off the Swords to Plowshares. And we're going to get a Mother of Runes. And Port. And it looks like Jason actually using the Rishadan Port, or the Thespian Stage to copy Rishadan Port, I believe. Does opposing Caracas. Swords to Plowshares. All of it can be denied by this pesky Sylvan Safekeeper. Caracas makes it onto the battlefield. Mishra's Factory. I haven't actually looked at lists lately. Certainly wasn't a super popular choice the last time I was looking at Death and Taxes lists. I believe this is a edition that Heather is trying out. I think she's spoken highly of it. Factory adds a board presence here. But at this point, Jason has the Elvish Reclaimer. And yeah, this game really didn't play out much like Turbo Depths at all. This kind of feels like a mid-rangey game. And this Elvish Reclaimer is going to be able to, at the end of the turn, fetch up a Dark Depths. Another Sylvan Safekeeper coming down? All right. Well, this is going to be pretty difficult to deal with for Heather. Elvish Reclaimer has found the Dark Depths. There's a Thespian Stage. There should be some counters on there, but they won't be for long. Abrupt Decay takes out the Aether Vial. Jason just covering all the potential angles here, but I mean, the Sylvan Safekeeper pretty much has it covered on its own. Really, the only possible issue here would be like a Phyrexian Revoker. That would be an issue. And now we've got, during the end step, making the 20/20. There are 3 lands. How many responses can Heather possibly have? She needs 4. 4 at instant speed. Starting out with Caracas, sacking a land. A Swords to Plowshares. Oh, a Path to Exile. Sacking a land, responding. Swords to Plowshares. Sacking the last land. And that is going to do it. Jason taking that one down. It's actually worth noting you can't... So that's the Path to Exile shouldn't have gone to the graveyard there, if I'm understanding the sequencing right. The path would only go to the graveyard once it resolves. So if you were in a contentious situation as far as getting the rules right, your Path to Exile is going to stay on the stack. They sack the land. Then you'd respond with the swords, so that Path to Exile wouldn't go to the graveyard. That can be potentially... I mean, it was certainly more important when I was traveling a lot, like going to Europe and playing where both people didn't speak the same language. You definitely needed to make sure that type of sequencing was on point. Otherwise, you got judge calls where people are speaking 2 different languages, trying to explain what's going on. Luckily... we actually take these Wednesday and Friday night tournaments with a pretty decent grain of salt. We have kind of recognized the challenges of playing over the webcam, and you just kind of have to give people as much leniency as possible. You know, you're obviously not going to play the cards for them or coach them or anything along those lines, but, you know, there are plenty of times where somebody says they're going to do something and you give them a second and make sure that they actually are committing to that. decision, as miscommunication is definitely a little bit easier when you're playing over the webcam, and having some grace and understanding. We've seen some really sportsman-like plays happening with some of the errors and stuff that have happened where people have just been very cool about it. I'm super happy with the group that we're developing. Of course, I love our players from our local area, but to have all of these new players like Heather and Yvonne and so many others that have been joining us on a weekly basis from Texas, New York, New Jersey, California, it's really cool. I'm recording this right after a 14-person Wednesday night legacy. And Inquisition of Kozilek is coming in. And he's going to have some good options. One of them is a Swords to Plowshares. The Pithing Needle coming down. Actually not positive what Heather named. I'm going to guess Thespian Stage. And now a second Inquisition clearing Heather's hand. She has just a Mishra's Factory and a Pithing Needle for some protection. And it's go time. 2 damage getting in there. It's going to be a question of if Jason can find a way to combo off around this Pithing Needle or not. Lotus Petal. If my Magic experience is any indication, Jason would have drawn that Thespian Stage after Pithing Needle called its name. That is absolutely mathematically how it works. When your opponent plays a Meddling Mage or a Pithing Needle, that is what you're going to draw. Flickerwisp gets cleared, and Jason now hung up on just 3 mana. Factory continues to beat, but the coast is clear. Every draw is dangerous for Jason. She could draw all sorts of different things that could be a problem for the Merit Lage. During the end step, going to turn one of these Thespian Stages into a Mishra's Factory, perhaps? Either a Basic Plains or a Mishra's Factory. First strike for Vampire Hexmage means this Mother of Runes is going to need to help out, but she's happy to do that. And now Flickerwisp opening up a white mana and also ready to serve as a blocker. Another Vampire Hexmage. No Dark Depths has been found. Pro Black sending the team. I got to imagine a Mishra's Factory has been copied here. Maybe we can see that. Oh, but he doesn't have the black or the green mana for the Abrupt Decay. And that is going to do it. So Heather scrapping that one out. Jason never finding the Dark Depths in game number 3, as Death and Taxes really is a difficult matchup for so many combo decks. Turbo Depths amongst the most difficult. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.